Have you ever found yourself sitting alone, wondering how life changed so quickly? One day, you're surrounded by family, routines, and responsibilities, and the next, you're adjusting to a quieter, slower rhythm. Living alone in your later years can feel like stepping into a completely different world, one filled with both freedom and unexpected challenges. But here's the truth. No one really prepares us for this stage of life. No one tells us what to expect, what mistakes to avoid, or how to truly make the most of it. Today, we're going to uncover the things people often overlook about living alone as we age, things that can make all the difference between feeling isolated and feeling empowered. If you've ever felt like no one really talks about the realities of growing older on your own, you're not alone. And if you stay with me until the end, I promise you'll walk away with insights that can help you stay safe, stay happy, and most importantly, stay in control of your life. Because let's be honest, aging alone doesn't mean aging lonely. It doesn't mean giving up, settling for boredom, or feeling invisible. In fact, with the right mindset and approach, it can be one of the most fulfilling times of your life. So, if you're ready to take charge, learn some surprising truths, and maybe even change the way you see this chapter of life, let's dive in. Have you ever imagined what it would be like to live in a nursing home? Maybe you wondered if it's as comfortable as people say, or perhaps you feared the thought of losing your independence. Well, let me tell you, nothing prepares you for the reality of it until you experience it yourself. I never thought I'd spend 2 months in a nursing home, but life has a funny way of teaching us lessons when we least expect it. I'm 77 years old, and I recently found myself in a situation that required me to stay in a nursing home for a couple of months. At first, I thought I knew what to expect. I pictured a quiet place where people my age could relax, be taken care of, and enjoy the final chapters of life in peace. But what I actually discovered was much more eye-opening. Something surprised me. Others, quite frankly, shocked me. And today, I want to share with you the most important lessons I learned. Things no one tells you about what really happens in a nursing home. This is not just about my experience. It's about preparing yourself, understanding what to expect, and making choices that will give you the best possible life as you age. Whether you're considering moving into a facility, worry about a loved one, or simply curious, this conversation is one you need to hear. Because what I learned could change the way you see aging, independence, and what truly matters in life. Let me start by saying this. The first thing that hit me was the loss of control over my daily life. When you've lived independently for decades, suddenly having someone else decide when you eat, when you shower, and even when you can go outside is a massive adjustment. At home, if I wanted a snack at midnight, I'd get up and grab one. If I wanted to sit outside and watch the sunset, I'd step out the door. In a nursing home, you follow their schedule, not yours. At first, I tried to go along with it. I told myself, it's just temporary, it's not a big deal. But over time, I started feeling like I had lost a piece of myself. Something as simple as choosing what time to wake up or when to have coffee in the morning. Those little things define your freedom. And when they're gone, you feel it. One of the most difficult moments for me was the first time I asked if I could take a walk outside and was told I needed permission. That might not sound like much, but when you've been walking freely your entire life, suddenly needing approval to step outside feels like a punch to the gut. It reminded me that in these places, the system is designed for efficiency, not necessarily personal happiness. The second thing I learned, loneliness is real, even when you're surrounded by people. You'd think that being in a home full of other seniors would mean constant conversation, new friendships, and plenty of social time. But the reality? Many residents kept to themselves. Some barely spoke, and others seemed lost in their own world. It wasn't the warm, welcoming community I had imagined. I remember sitting at a communal dining table with 5 other people, yet feeling completely alone. Conversations were brief, mostly about the food or the weather. Many residents had been there for years, and some had stopped engaging altogether. It made me realize something incredibly important. Human connection is not about physical presence. It's about emotional presence. Just because people are around doesn't mean you feel seen, heard, or valued. I found myself craving real conversation, the kind I used to have with friends over coffee, where we'd laugh, share stories, and talk about life. Instead, I saw people slipping into routines that made them emotionally withdraw. Some watched TV all day, some stared out the window, and some simply waited for the next meal to be served. That's when I made a decision. If I was going to be in this place, I wasn't going to let loneliness take over. I started initiating conversations, even when others seemed distant. I made an effort to ask people about their past, their families, and their interests. And you know what? Slowly it worked. I found that beneath the surface, many people were just waiting for someone to truly listen. I'll never forget one gentleman, Robert, who barely spoke at first. But one day, I asked him about his favorite childhood memory. His eyes lit up and suddenly, he was talking about fishing trips with his father, summers spent on a farm, and the love he had for jazz music. That was the first real connection I made in home, and it reminded me that we all have stories inside us waiting to be told. We just need someone willing to listen. But the hardest part? Seeing how many people had no visitors. I met people who had children, grandchildren, even siblings still alive, yet no one came to see them. Weeks would pass, and their phone never rang. Holidays came and went, and their chair at the visiting area remained empty. I thought about my own family and how much I had taken for granted over the years. It made me realize something that I need you to hear. If you have people in your life, treasure them, call them, visit them, tell them they matter. Because one day, you might find yourself in a place where you're waiting for that call, and it never comes. Now, I know this might sound a little heavy, but let me tell you something else. This experience also taught me the value of staying engaged, staying active, and refusing to let aging take away my joy. Just because I was in a nursing home didn't mean I had to stop being me. That's why, even in those 2 months, I found small ways to keep my independence. I started reading more, journaling my thoughts, and even leading a small group where we talk about books or life lessons. I refused to just sit and wait for the day to pass. I made the most of what I had. And that's the biggest lesson I want to share with you today. No matter where you are in life, you still have a choice. You can choose to engage, to stay curious, to connect with people, and to live with purpose. Don't let aging circumstances or even a nursing home define your spirit. You are still you. And that, my friend, is something no one can take away. Something changed in me after that first month. I realized that even though I was living in a nursing home, I still had control over one thing, my attitude. I could either sit back and let time pass me by, or I could make the most of every moment. And I chose the second option. But I also learned that choosing to stay engaged doesn't mean ignoring the challenges. Because let me tell you, there are real challenges. And one of the biggest ones I faced was the way time slows down in a nursing home. When you're living alone or with family, your days are filled with purpose. Maybe you cook meals, run errands, take care of a pet, or visit friends. But inside a nursing home, much of that is gone. There's a schedule for meals, a schedule for medication, a schedule for activities, but there's also a lot of time in between. And if you're not careful, that time starts to feel endless. I saw people fall into routines that made the days blend together. They would wake up, eat breakfast, sit in a chair, watch TV, eat lunch, sit in the same chair, watch more TV, eat dinner, then go to bed. The same thing, every day. And that terrified me, because once you stop engaging with the world, you start to disappear. I knew I had to create my own sense of purpose. So I started setting small goals for myself. Nothing complicated, just things to keep my mind and body active. One day, I decided to walk 5 extra laps around the common area. Another day, I started writing letters to my grandchildren. And before I knew it, those small goals made each day feel different. That's something I wish more people understood about aging. You have to create purpose for yourself. It won't just show up. It doesn't matter if you live in a house, an apartment, or a nursing home. If you don't have something to look forward to, time will start to feel like it's standing still. And that's when people start giving up. I also noticed something else during my stay. How easy it is to neglect your health when you don't feel like you're in control. Let's be honest, as we get older, staying healthy takes more effort. But in a nursing home, it's easy to slip into the mindset of, well, this is just how it is now. You take the medications they give you, you eat what's on the menu, and you stop questioning things. But here's the truth. You are still responsible for your body. I saw some residents who never questioned anything. If they were given a new medication, they just took it. If they felt pain, they ignored it. If they weren't sleeping well, they assumed it was just part of aging. But I also met people who were proactive. They asked questions. They stayed curious. They made sure they understood what was happening with their health. And guess what? Those were the people who seemed the most energetic and engaged. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to ignore my health just because I was in a nursing home. I asked about my medications. I paid attention to how different foods made me feel. And I did whatever movement I could, whether it was stretching in my chair, walking, or even just sitting up straight instead of slouching. That's another thing no one tells you. Movement matters more than ever when you're older. If you sit in one position for too long, your body starts to stiffen up. Your muscles weaken faster than you realize. And before you know it, basic things, like standing up from a chair, become harder than they should be. I met a woman named Margaret who was 85 years old, and she was one of the most active people in the nursing home. Every morning, she would walk up and down the hallways, using her walker but moving at her own pace. She told me something I'll never forget. If you don't move your body, it stops working for you. That stuck with me, because I saw it happening to people who gave up on movement. They stayed in bed too long, and getting up became harder. They stopped walking, and their legs lost strength. It was a slow process, but it was happening right in front of me. So if you take one thing from this, let it be this. Keep moving no matter what. Even if it's just small stretches, even if it's just lifting your arms a few times, even if it's just standing up and sitting back down. Movement is life, and the more you move, the longer you'll keep your independence. Now, I want to talk about something that's harder to admit, but it's one of the biggest lessons I learned. Not everyone in a nursing home is treated equally. I'm not saying all nursing homes are bad, but I will say this. You need to be aware, you need to be observant, and you need to speak up for yourself. I saw residents who had family members that visited them every week, and they always seemed to get better care. And then I saw residents who had no visitors, no one checking on them. And unfortunately, they were often the ones being overlooked. It wasn't always intentional. Sometimes it was just that the staff had too many people to care for, and they naturally paid more attention to the ones who had people watching over them. That was hard to see. And it made me realize something important. If you ever have to go into a nursing home, or if you have a loved one who does, don't assume everything is perfect just because it looks nice on the outside. Be involved. Ask questions. Make sure that person is being treated with care and respect. Because the sad truth is, the people who don't have anyone looking out for them are often the ones who are forgotten. And that's not fair. But it happens. That's why, even after I left the nursing home, I made it a point to keep visiting some of the people I met there. Because no one deserves to feel invisible. And that brings me to my final point for today. Aging is not just about surviving. It's about staying connected, staying engaged, and making the most of every day. I don't care if you're 60, 70, 80, or 90. You are still here. And that means you still have something to offer, something to experience, and something to enjoy. And that's exactly what I told myself every day in that nursing home. Because even though it was one of the hardest experiences of my life, it was also one of the most eye-opening. One of the most surprising things I learned during my time in the nursing home was this. Happiness isn't about where you live. It's about how you live. I met people who had everything they needed, good food, medical care, a comfortable room, but they were still miserable. And then I met people who had very little, but they were full of laughter, gratitude, and life. At first, I wondered what made the difference. But after 2 months of watching, listening, and experiencing life inside those walls, I realized that attitude is everything. If you wake up every day thinking, this is just how life is now, you'll start to feel like a prisoner in your own body. But if you wake up and say, I still have a purpose, I still have choices, I still have today, then life takes on a whole new meaning, no matter where you are. That was the mindset of a man named Walter, an 82-year-old veteran I met during my stay. Walter had lost a lot. His wife had passed, his children lived far away, and he had trouble walking on his own. But do you know what Walter did every morning? He woke up smiling. Every single day, he made it a point to greet everyone he saw, crack jokes, and spread joy. I asked him once, "Walter, how do you stay so positive?" And he said something I'll never forget. "Happiness is a choice. I can be bitter or I can be grateful, and I'd rather be grateful." That hit me hard. Because the truth is, life gives us plenty of reasons to be bitter as we age. Our bodies change, our friends move away or pass on, and we can start feeling like we've lost control over our own lives. But no matter what, we still have the power to choose how we see the world. That's when I realized, if you ever find yourself in a situation you don't like, whether it's a nursing home, living alone, or dealing with unexpected challenges, the most powerful thing you can do is focus on what you still have, not what you've lost. And that's what I did. Instead of complaining about the things I couldn't do, I focused on what I could do, instead of feeling sorry for myself. I looked for ways to stay engaged. And instead of waiting for someone to make my day better, I took responsibility for my own happiness. And you know what? That changed everything. But let's be honest. Staying positive doesn't mean ignoring the hard stuff. There were nights when I lay in bed feeling lonely. Days when I missed the freedom of living in my own home. Moments when I felt invisible, like I was just another old person in a sea of faces. And I know I'm not the only one who's ever felt that way. That's why I want to tell you this. If you're feeling lonely, if you're feeling forgotten, if you're feeling like life has passed you by, you are not alone. Aging can be tough, but it's not the end of the road. You are still here. You still have something to give. And the world still needs your wisdom, your experience, and your presence. I saw too many people in that nursing home who had given up on themselves. People who believed they were too old to start new friendships, too weak to try new things, too far gone to enjoy life again. But I also met people who refused to let age define them. I met a 90-year-old woman who started painting for the first time in her life. I met an 87-year-old man who decided to learn Spanish just because he wanted to. I met a woman in her 70s who had never exercised before, but she started doing chair yoga every morning. And they were the ones who were the happiest, not because they had easier lives, but because they made the choice to keep living. So, if you take away one lesson from my time in that nursing home, let it be this. As long as you are breathing, you are still capable of joy, growth, and new experiences. Maybe you can't move as fast as you used to. Maybe you don't have the same energy you did in your 40s. Maybe your life looks very different now than it did before, but you still have today. And today is an opportunity to make a change, to reach out to someone, to try something new, to appreciate the little moments. Because in the end, that's what life comes down to, the small, simple moments. Not the big houses, not the fancy vacations, not the things we collect along the way. It's the laughter over a cup of coffee, the warmth of a handwritten note from a friend, the feeling of sunshine on your skin, the joy of learning something new, even at 80 or 90. And that's the lesson I want to leave you with. No matter where you are in life, no matter what challenges you're facing, you still have the power to shape your own experience. So, whether you're living alone in a retirement community or with family, don't wait for happiness to come to you. Create it. Make the phone call. Take the walk. Try something new. Because at the end of the day, the people who live the longest and happiest lives aren't the ones who have the most money or the easiest circumstances. They're the ones who keep moving, keep learning, keep laughing, and most importantly, keep choosing joy. Now, I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing that brings you joy in this stage of your life? Share in the comments below. I read every single one. And if this message resonated with you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Here's to living fully at every age.